name is Migiwa Orimo, and I was born in Tokyo and raised in Tokyo. But now I live in a small village of 3,500 people. It's called the Yellow Spring Isle. And I work in interdisciplinary and research-based practice. And a lot of times form takes in the form of installation art. During the war, towards the end of the war, my mother and her family was living in Kagoshima Prefecture, which is about 200 miles of Nagasaki. And during that time, especially towards the end of the war, her oldest brother was at Nagasaki Medical School. And in April in 1945, my grandfather, who was also there, died suddenly. So following month, I think June or July, my uncle, my mother's oldest brother, was forced to leave the school and have to come back home to Kagoshima. So as a result, he barely escaped the bombing on Nagasaki, which his school was basically the hypocenter, very close to the hypocenter of the bomb, was dropped on Nagasaki. My piece in the show is called Fūin, means then what I did was there's a plain toy that it's a model that it's 1:48 scale in size. So it's not a tiny, but it's good size airplane model. And this is a model that is a B-29 plane that dropped the bomb on Nagasaki. So as a result, the parts also include the Fat Man, the bomb. And what I did was, usually people will assemble, and instead I encased each parts in linen and stitched up each piece in a embroidery floss thread in red, and I number them. And what I did was I display them with number as if these are the specimens collection. And as a result, it shows up the image of collecting something and displaying it to be studied, but it's also almost like a show that is collected from archaeological dig. And each one, it takes a long time for a stitching. And that process of stitching each piece also, for me, is that it has that sort of a sense of closing, sealing wounds. And also very gently, each one is treated like this is the precious parts. And also, use of the red thread is the nod to a traditional Japanese tradition during the World War II. A lot of the women made the, many sort of French knots with a red thread on the cotton or linen to create an amulet to give it to a soldier before they go off to the war. And it's always with red thread. The woman basically passed this fabric from sister to mother, grandmother, neighboring woman, and that kind of meditative thinking about the life of their families and whatnot. So in that process of closing all these parts was also, I was sort of tapping into that vision. But by presenting unassembled parts, also I wanted to ask who construct the narrative of the war in our cultural telling. And there's so many elements that we can learn from archives and people's stories, individual stories, but who actually assembles into a narrative of historical information. And that's the part that I really wanted to question. And this piece about that. So this piece, the Fūin, came out after I finished this installation piece. It's called Proofs of Burden. And this was 2018. And this was a project that I basically reached 3 archives, the nuclear bomb, atomic bomb. And the 3 archives were, one is the National Archive, and the second is the this very unique archive that is housed in Peace Resource Center at the Women's College in Ohio, which is about 40 minutes from where I live. And also very ideologically sanitized display of historical airplanes and whatnot at the National Museum of the United States Air Force, which is only 25 minutes from here where I live. So it was a very interesting place that I live. And by researching the 3 archives, I also realized how, again, the narratives of war is very different, depends on how you look at those things. And this National Museum of Air Force also housed the airplane that dropped the Fat Man, the boxcar is being housed. So I researched the war didactics and how they're displaying this airplane. And compared to this Peace Resource Center at the Wilmington College, which is a very unique archive that it's by Bob Reynolds, which she's a Quaker peace activist. So there's a lot of personal letters and photographs and different news clips and been collected in the filing cabinet. Story of it's really could be very different. Depends on who goes there and what is the story you bring, or what is your position, and to look at view all these things. And it's really up to us to really create the story and really looking at those frozen items in the archives and bring out to today. And also as a viewer and researcher, we are bringing today's situation where we are. This is the Hiroshima and Nagasaki's A-bombs 75th anniversary. And a lot of times, a lot of hibakusha we are losing them. They're getting very old. And so really, I keep thinking, so what will be the next chapter for us to continue telling the story? But it's also continue researching the story of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And is there a new way to present this historical event that happened? Is there a new way to sort of using our artistic life to create the story? And I keep sort of thinking about that. And I think the archives is something that it's always there, but if nobody uses it, it's being frozen. But by opening those drawers and pulling those documents, you don't know, when is the last time somebody put or documents or photographs. And to sort of interact, that really sort of activates the archives. And I think that's a very interesting field to explore. And that's what I'm sort of excited